I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us back once again, top precious metals analyst David Morgan. David Morgan coming to us from the Northwest. David Morgan, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Greg, it's always great to be with you. Thank you.
I love having you on, and this is really a good time to have you on because just this week you came out with this book, The Silver Manifesto. It's really everything you ever wanted to know about silver and silver investing, about the history of it. You have photographs, you have charts, you have graphs. But what caught my eye was the chapter that you have in here called The Debt Bomb. And this is one big fat why currently, right now, as to why you should be investing in precious metals. Can you tell me about why you should be investing in precious metals?
Well, Greg, we could probably go on for a couple hours on that, but I'll try to be succinct. We had a little pre-show talk, and so I thought one of the easiest ways to do it is going to read you something. And this is way back in the beginning meaning from the time I was on the Internet, and I was contacted by a group in the United Kingdom that wrote a book called Investing Rules. And they even included the lowly silver market, which by all their market measures is a very, very small market relative to the mutual fund market or the real estate market or even the gold market, commodities markets in general. However, it is a market. So the rules are found in a global book called Investing Rules, which includes tactics, strategies, and insights relied on by 150 of the world's most respected financial experts. They reveal in a concise, digestible form in order to be successful in investing, and it covers the gamut, Greg. You know, limited partnerships, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, on and on, okay? Silver's included. So, 10 rules, asked to write it in a pithy manner. And so rule number one, usually the first rule is the most important, and here's what I wrote, well more than a decade ago. One, when all else fails, there is silver. No one likes to be a prophet of doom, but the simple truth is that silver is the world's money of last resort. Should a severe economic collapse occur, leaving per assets worthless, silver will be the primary currency for purchase of goods and services. Gold will be a store of wealth, but will be priced too high for day-to-day use. Thus, every investor should own some physical silver and store a portion of it where it is accessible in an emergency. And Greg, if you'll just allow me to go on just another minute or two of what I've already experienced in my lifetime, which is much more than this, but I'm just going to hit a high point or two. If you could see that on the camera, the $1 trillion bet, that's all about long-term capital management and what happened. And that almost took down the system, but Mr. Greenspan and the Fed came to the rescue. I've been looking at this my entire life, as most people that are close to me know. Here's a book written by the original silver guru, Jerome Smith, called The Coming Currency Collapse. That's certainly valid in today's thinking. So I'll turn it back over to you, Greg. It's just that that's the bottom line. Currencies always have failed when they're unbacked. We've got a pretty good track record on that. So the question for your friends and family or non-believers is, since every non-backed fiat currency in the history of, in all of recorded history has failed, then why will the dollar not fail? That's the question. Because people usually have a great answer for that, but so far we can't prove it one way or the other.
Let's talk about your chapter, The Debt Bomb. And is that too harsh of a word for people? Because some people think that, the debt bomb, you're talking about exploding. But it really ought to be called the debt nuclear bomb. I mean, I know the debt is massive. Even the Bank of International Settlements came out and said the derivative exposure, they admit it's $1 quadrillion. Some people say it's twice, 2.5 times that. But just take the official number. That's a big number, $1 quadrillion, 1,000 trillion. When you talk about the debt bomb, what are you talking about? Why should people perk their ears up and pay attention?
Well, it's the underlying crux of the entire system, and it relies not only on debt of the U.S. government, which is primary since we're the reserve currency, but it filters into all other nation states because basically we, the United States, has exported their inflation to every other country. And so for them to stay competitive, they are required to weaken their own currencies for what's called competitive advantage, which simply means that unless they print commensurate with what the United States is printing, that their currencies will become too strong, and then they won't be able to export. So in order to keep trade flowing, these other countries are basically required to do what the United States government does, which is export a great quantity of unbacked paper promises that at this point are impossible to pay back. So that's the crux of the debt bomb. It's going to explode. The problem is we don't know how it's going to explode. One is several ways, but the two basic premises are either you default on the debt and you say, look, we can't pay this back, and you make adjustments to it, so that would be called a reset. Or you pretend that everything's okay, you keep kicking the can down the road, and you continue to debase the currencies, which is what governments have always done when it's a non-backed currency. There's no example in history that shows when you have a non-backed currency that you don't choose the latter route, meaning that you just continue to print and print and print. And of course, this is what Europe is doing currently with their $1.1 trillion bond buying expedition by Mr. Draghi that says, everything is fine, don't look behind the curtain, we'll just keep on put our, foot pedal to the metal, as we used to express in the financial markets, simply meaning that we're just going to keep pouring more paper into the system. The problem is this. If you look at the founding of the Federal Reserve in 1913 to present day, so just over 100 years, the Federal Reserve itself would admit that the 100 cents is now worth about 4. So you've lost 96% of the value of the U.S. dollar as defined by the Federal Reserve itself. So that has been a failure, a tremendous failure. That is a collapse in slow motion, a collapse, let me repeat, in slow motion. So now what we're really arguing about is what's going to happen in the last 4 cents worth of the United States dollar as basis 1913. Is it going to go from 4 cents to 2 cents in a matter of weeks, or is it going to take another 10 years to go from 4 cents to 2 cents? That's really the issue. And I think from my study, my work, and basically looking at the alternative media, it looks to me as if there will be a point or an inflection point, a tipping point, a point of no return, where you will get an acceleration. And that's like a flock of birds flying one direction, and all of a sudden out of nowhere they make a hard left. Everyone follows, and all of a sudden things have changed dramatically.
So I'm glad that you brought up the European Union. I mean, Greece, the cradle of democracy, is in big trouble. A lot of people that's been up to the front page, back down, up to the front page, back down. They just scraped together enough money, according to Zero Hedge, to make their latest payment to the IMF. That is, how can that go well? Is that what you're talking about, not looking behind the curtain? I mean, isn't Greece going to be forced to exit and default?
Certainly, yes. Yes, and the problem is, of course, that everyone's in power, in my opinion, is acting like a bunch of kids. I mean, no one will be an adult, state the problem clearly, and admit it. Of course, this new regime in Greece actually has. They're the first truth tellers at the political level that have actually said we're bankrupt. What a concept, telling the truth, something you hardly ever hear in the mainstream financial media or the mainstream press, period. So basically they've said, yeah, we're bankrupt and we want out. And of course, politically, that turned out to be not politically correct. So there's all this pressure to stay in the union, not take the Russian proposal and march on as if everything is okay. But everything isn't okay. So yes, again, kicking the can down the road, but that doesn't mean that you don't have, this horrible debt disease that infects the entire planet. And so we're just, again, pretending like it's going to go away, but it's not going to go away.
And if you buy silver or gold or precious metals or land or whatever, something tangible, I guess land is subject to interest rates and things like that. But if you buy, everything is subject to interest rates, you could say. But if you buy precious metals, i.e. silver, the Silver Manifesto, how does that help you? How do you shield yourself?
I think I want to be clear on this. I mean, money, even honest money, silver and gold, isn't like the absolute solution. I mean, the way I see it is it's a transition point. Like I said when I read you the point number 1 in the 10 investing rules, it's something that you could use as barter in a worst case scenario. I mean, no one knows exactly how this is going to unfold, including myself, naturally. However, I see it as something that you must have in the worst case, and something that you can use in the best case. In other words, you can trade it right now for paper profits if you want. You can use it as a hedge. There's lots you can do with it. But the real crux of the issue is not only what's happening in the monetary realm, but what's happening at the political realm, which means the amount of spying, et cetera, that's going on. So as I've said before on other shows, Greg, is that if you can't go where you want, say what you want, read what you want, buy what you want, and you have all kinds of profits in gold and silver, then really what good has it done you? In other words, if you've lost your freedom and you have a lot of real wealth that has come through to the other side, but you can't use it, then really has money solved the problem? And the answer is no, at least in my strong view. So certainly I'm not trying to contradict myself. What I'm trying to do is give a bigger picture to the gold and silver argument that I see as a transition. But we have got problems well beyond the monetary system, and that's why I wrote the last chapter, Beyond Silver, to address some of these. I don't really want to address it. I want to focus on the debt bomb. But the debt bomb is just an extrapolation of lying and lying and lying. What I mean by that is the idea that you can get something for nothing. The fact that you can print yourself wealthy is ridiculous. Zimbabwe has proven that you can't. Argentina has proven that you can't. Greece has proven that you can't. And on it goes. So when is the world going to wake up and start acting like, adults rather than a bunch of kids that expect a bunch of stuff that they don't have to work for? And I'm not talking to the general class that's out there working like crazy. That's not who I'm addressing. I'm talking about the parasite class, the banking elites that have conned everybody into thinking that they have the mastermind race, or whatever you want to call it. Use whatever terminology is appropriate for wherever you live, that they have the superior ability to dictate to us lowlifes exactly how the cow eats the cabbage. I think I'm fed up with it. I think a lot of people are waking up to it. And I think in another year or less, Greg, that even your friends and family that are looking at us debt bomb, debt destruction people are going to wake up to the fact that it's true. And then they're going to be looking for a way out, or what they can do to protect themselves.
Well, there comes a point.
Accelerate at the end. We're getting toward the end.
We are getting towards the end. You say we're getting towards the end. Why do you say that?
Well, because one, you see what's happening even in the mainstream that's starting to admit things. You see, like Greece, as I said a moment ago, says we're bankrupt. Hey, truth in the mainstream media, amazing. And then you're seeing more and more stopgap measures, let's call them, and you're seeing the currency crisis manifest day after day. I mean, you've got the ruble, you've got the Argentina problem, you've got all the BRICS emerging with their own currency block. So everything that myself and many others have talked about in the final phase where you have the currency war. See, the bankers' last vestige of hope, that's what I call it, the bankers' last vestige of hope, is to con everyone into thinking that one currency is better than another currency. But it's not. Oh, I'm not saying that currencies don't fluctuate, and I'm not saying that the ruble didn't drop 50%. That's not what I'm saying. That's all part of their game. That's all part of the deception. That's part of the idea that one currency is stronger or commodity-backed. It's nonsense. They're all worthless pieces of paper. And when that truth resonates with enough people, which may only be 1%, that is when the exits start to get hit very, very hard, and people start to seek a non-fiat currency or actual real money, gold and silver. And silver is superior to gold from the aspect of it's usable in day-to-day commerce. But really, when I wrote the 10 rules, that was well over a decade ago, and now there's there's these electronic gold type of things where you could, put in fractions. In fact, there's a gram of gold now that's put on, I'll call it cellophane, but it's not, it's plastic strip. So there's other things that have been invented since I wrote that rule number 1. The point being that, again, I think it's a transition. I think it's absolutely required. I think it's your best hope to preserve your wealth. But nonetheless, money alone isn't the solution. It's just part of a solution to much, much greater, deeper, based problems that are on a global basis.
Are you saying we can all wake up one day and find out our paper money is worthless? And what kind of a world does that look like?
A very interesting world. It's certainly a big reset. If you look at one of the films I'm so fond of showing at the conferences, it's called Rollover. And exactly that happens. It's a film documentary or docudrama that's fiction that the Arabs decide they've had it with the West, so the Arabs decide they're going to take their money out of all the U.S. banking system, and it collapses the system, and basically overnight all currencies go to zero, effectively. And it's a very interesting movie, and of course the very, very end of the movie shows kind of a dark room. It's sort of done in a dramatic way, which it would be in real life, and that everyone's looking for a way to restart. So is that going to happen? Greg, I looked at it as a very, very far end of the curve, the tail of the curve, as they say, in a bell curve. I mean, it's extremely remote. Is it a possibility? Certainly. What's a percentage? I don't know, 0.05%, 0.002%. It's very small. But nonetheless, again,
what do you think will happen? What's the biggest percentage of risk you think will happen when we have the reset coming?
Great question. First of all, I don't know, but I really have thought about it. I think there'll be a reset before we get there, and it'll probably be some type of global currency, or maybe a, like we've talked about in the past, the Amero, which would be a North American currency block like the euro is now, which is failing. So, why would they put, another failure on top of one that's already failing? I don't know. But I think there'll be some kind of new way, a new reset, if you will, before the final collapse happens. But what no one, to my knowledge, has talked about is, what if it was rejected? What if the bankers say, okay, starting, 3 weeks from now, we're going to have this new currency unit, so your bank account is going to look like this, your mortgages will be readjusted to this, your new wage rate will be adjusted to this, and here it's going to happen. You've got 3 weeks to get your affairs in order, and then on Monday, the blank of 2017, we're there, get ready, you've got warning, you've got this time, and all that. So what if they do something along those lines, and the people in general say, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not doing that. I'm cashing into gold. I'm cashing everything into silver. I'm getting out of the system. I've had it.
But there's not enough out there to make that move.
Absolutely. And that's why I agree with what you said from the first time I listened to your first program. There will be a time when you either have it or you don't have it. And that's why I'd rather be 6 months too early than 6 minutes too late.
The currency crisis that we have right now, does it end this year? We had Jonathan Kahn on. I had a lot of people that are pointing to this year. Martin Armstrong thinks that that things will fall out of bed this year. What do you think about the possibility? I mean, Greece is just the canary in the proverbial European coal mine, actually the global coal mine. What's your sense of timing? Do we have a big dislocation, a big crash, a big crack up, or do we get a big war, which is also looking very, very highly likely at this moment?
It's a very interesting question. I mean, I pay attention to Martin Armstrong. I've read both of Kahn's books. And what's so interesting is my analysis, does change. I mean, things change in these markets and their dynamics. So certainly I haven't got it right all the way through, but I've done a better than average job. I'll put my track record against any of them. But I, too, am looking at around the September timeframe, done in a totally different way than the Harbinger or the Shemitah or Martin Armstrong's supercomputer. I did it basically on seasonalities, what the true money supply is, what the gold and silver price is based on the true money supply, which we go into in the Morgan report, because that's really the best way to look at it. We're going to have it out next month, Greg, about what is $16 silver compared to $5 silver, over a decade ago. And basically they're the same price. Isn't that amazing? This inflation that no one talks about. If you inflate the money supply by the true money supply, and I don't have time to go into what that means, but it's explained well in the Morgan report, and you take a $5 silver piece back in 2003, and you use the true money supply to find out what the true price is in fiat currency now, hey, guess what? It's pretty close to the $16. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is, because you're buying the same silver for basically the same amount that you would have over a decade ago, it's really on sale. It's really a bargain. You've got to get out of this paper price paradigm. What you really need to do is think in terms of, stacking silver or stacking gold. Do I have more gold today than I had a year ago? And then by definition, you're wealthier, because it's true wealth. It's real wealth. But of course, again, going back to the, banker's last vestige of hope, they always get you, mindset or brainwashed into thinking currency. When someone says, how much are you worth? Well, I'm worth X amount of dollars. You know what? Greg, I'm telling you, some facts. I mean, that is a dollar. That's a dollar. A dollar is a weight of silver. 371.2 fine grains of 999 fine silver. That's a dollar. A piece of paper with somebody's picture on it that says dollar on it is a fraud. It's a fractional reserve accounting unit denomination put out by a private bank to con the public. That's what it is.
Let's go back to your timing of this fall. And I want you to explain that a little deeper. Why do you think that it falls apart this fall?
The momentum is one indicator. Again, I said the true money supply. Also, I would say I wasn't influenced by the Shemitah, although I'm influenced now, but I hadn't read that, when I made my forecast that it'd be the fall. There's a big seasonality, and basically, I have to say, part of it is strict analytical detail. And part of it is basically being in this market for 40 years. I don't have a perfect sixth sense about the precious metals markets or markets in general. But I've got a pretty good idea of the average person, since I am one, of what's going on out there and the feedback I get among friends and family, but not just what's here in the Northwest. I'm in Europe. I'm in Asia. I'm in South America. I'm in Mexico. I'm in Canada. So I get a global feel, if you will, for what people are really thinking, really dealing with, and what their concerns are. And so, in a way, you might say it's like a barometer reading. And I feel it, that there's more and more tension all the time, and there's less and less solutions, and people are looking for them. So again, it's more of an analytical thing, which isn't always reliable, but it's more of a fundamental take on how fed up people are on a global basis. And based on that, or those two factors, it seems to me, as I said in the January issue, that September is going to be about the point where people have had it way past here, and it will come. And then, of course, Martin Armstrong's work, he's got it with his analytical models that seem to have been pretty good at forecasting when things turn. And, of course, and this was by Mr. Kahn that you did the interview on about this debt jubilee that's every 7 years, but it's a 7-7, so like it's a grand super cycle. And lastly, it has to do with the stock market, where it is and how far extended it has been and how much longer they can make this con game about, buy stocks, buy stocks, buy stocks. Usually you get a big comeuppance in the October time frame. So that's also an influence. So it's a matter of, what I've learned in the markets for 40 years, still learning more, of course, and the technical work that looks like that's a setup.
September. Why is silver, for the silver investors, that people have, come on, well, I don't talk about silver a lot. I'm not an expert in precious metals, although I think everybody should have some. Is this my general thesis, is that you should have some, just as a hedge. You probably agree with that. But why is silver so cheap? Why has the price not recovered? Why, in all this money printing and all this wars and rumors of wars and all this, why hasn't silver and gold, popped up and gone back up to $25 or $30 an ounce, or gold back up to $1,500, $1,600, $1,800 an ounce? It shouldn't it? Or what's wrong with it? Are people worried about deflation? What's going on?
Well, there's several answers, but basically in a free market, the price is determined by supply and demand. The problem with gold and silver, and basically all the markets, is that the supply is basically supplied by paper. So the supply, when you want to have to buy X amount of ounces or kilos or tons of gold or silver, in many, many instances at the higher realms, meaning in the bank-to-bank situations or bullion bank to commercial bank or government-to-government, it's basically a paper exchange. So the supply of paper is infinite. You can create an infinite supply of a piece of paper that says gold on it or an infinite supply of silver that says silver on it. So the supply has been distorted to such a degree that the true market fundamentals aren't into play. And of course, then there's, these high frequency trading programs. There's a concerted effort by the Working Group on Financial Markets to suppress the gold market. The silver market pretty much has to be suppressed at the same time, because if silver took off to the moon, for example, gold didn't follow, then people would pretty much wake up and say, what's going on here? So it's a combination of a lot of factors, Greg. But basically, the real problem is the solution is in the problem, and that is that although they can create infinite amounts of paper gold, paper silver, there's only so much physical. So the day will come, as we've talked about before on this show, that either you have it or you don't. And that day of reckoning is getting closer and closer because the Chinese, the Indian population, Americans, North Americans, in fact, the globe in general is buying physical day after day after day. And many, near the end, will try to get out of their paper paradigm and into the physical metal only to find out that they have been given a bag of nothing, that their certificate, even whatever bank is on it or behind it or whoever is vouching for its validity, guess what? Doesn't work. So that run to gold, that run to silver in a physical sense could upset the apple cart tomorrow. I mean, basically all we would need is a small percentage of this paper paradigm for people to stand up and say, no, I don't want this piece of paper. Give me the real deal. I've got a certificate that says I have it. But that, of course, is suppressed. I'm sure there's been instances that have leaked out in the mainstream financial press where cash settlements were made rather than physical settlement. And that, of course, will continue. So that's it. It's supply and demand. The problem is the supply can be supplied by paper in so many instances that it suppressed the price. That's it in a nutshell. There's lots of other reasons on top of that, but that's probably the easiest for the general public to relate to.
We've been told that debt, I've said this is my own quote, I can't believe I have my own quote. I say that we've been told debt is money and debt is an asset, bonds, and we're going to find out one day neither's true. What do you think about that?
Absolutely true. Again, it comes back to the reality. You can't get something for nothing. You can have a central bank or a private consortium of bankers run by the Federal Reserve that can create something from thin air and put it into the economy and make things better. That worked. It did work. It worked. Lies worked for a while. I will speak from personal experience. I mean, sometimes you'll tell fib and you think you've got away with it, but usually the truth comes out. And of course, the truth that came out in 2008, and anyone that was paying attention saw that truth. And the reality is that nothing's really gotten that much better since 2008, other than the propaganda press that keeps telling us, don't look behind the curtain. Things are great. Things are great. Things are great. Look, the jobs report. Gold's down. Jobs. We're getting more jobs. Oh, yes. Come on. Give me a break.
Almost 93 million people are no longer counted in the workforces. I don't know, 92.89. I mean, it's just 100,000, a little more than 100,000 shy of 93 million people no longer counted in the workforce. That's stunning.
It is stunning. I mean, there are severe problems that are much more than the monetary one, which is, of course, a primary one. Money's important. It's very important. It should be honest. It should be true. It should be reliable. It should be constant. 100 cents today should be the same as 100 cents in 1913. But all these facts, are causing so many problems that all tangentially intersect each other. It's all interconnected in a way. The big lie is you can get something for nothing. People are waking up that this elite class gets it for nothing. No one else does. Everyone else has to, through blood, sweat, and tears, earn it. And then they have to give a portion of it back or whatever. And people are really getting fed up that understand how the real reality of the world works. The problem is almost everything in the world works differently than most people believe. The belief system is stronger than the truth, unfortunately, in the human species. And that's something that I came to a conclusion of many years ago. And unfortunately, a lot of people live their whole lives based on false beliefs rather than understanding the ultimate truth. And there are absolute truths. Not all of them are, but many are.
Silver and gold are money. Always have been, always will be. I want to come back with the value of silver right now, and I want to just hit on that as we close, because you are the the silver guru, and your book, The Silver Manifesto, lays it all out. So I do want to talk, get people their silver fix. And that is, I was watching one of the, TV, and they were advertising precious metals. I can't remember what company it was, maybe Lear, something like that. But up on the screen flashes, this is a great deal right now. Mining cost is $24 and change. And I'm thinking, I'm going to ask David Morgan if that's true. Is that what mining costs are, or are they fibbing on television? And I don't know who the company was. But are mining costs really $24 an ounce and silver $16? Is that true?
Long answer, sorry, Greg, but if you go back before the oil drop, The average was around 22 by our metrics, and I'll use ours because we do a little different methodology than most other analysts.
$22 an ounce to mine it out of the ground. So that's basically true.
Wait, let me interrupt you. Sorry, Vic. That's the past. First Majestic, which is one that one of the companies that we follow very closely, we just recalculated. It's around 14 now, because in most cases, energy costs result for about 25%.
Oh, because oil sold off.
Oil's dropped, so all-in costs have dropped. So it varies. It varies mine to mine. It varies with energy, et cetera. So right now, no, 24 is not an accurate number. Rule of thumb, I just throw it out there to be conservative, like say 17. So we're right about the cost of production right now.
So the price of silver is about what it costs to get it out of the ground and plug it into a coin. Wow, that sounds cheap, pretty cheap.
It is cheap. I mean, I wanted to go on if I could.
Go ahead.
If you go back to Roman times, a Roman denarius was what the average person or average silver made in a day. So you'd have to have basically 10 of those, 10 days to get an ounce of silver roughly. So people have asked me, what's the minimum amount that I should have in silver? So I just did the math in my head and said, well, if we went back to that value, not the paper price, the value, where 1/10 of an ounce would sustain a family really for a day, then 200 ounces would be roughly 6 months worth of savings. And 200 ounces today would be what, 100 times 16? Times 2. So, I mean, it's not like it's an insurmountable amount for the average person to accumulate over several months. And that, I think, would be at a minimum. That, everyone should have a little. How much is a little? Let's just say about 200 ounces.
And you think the 200 ounces today would be worth at least 10 times higher. So instead of $16 silver, you'd have $160 silver. If you just went back to historical times, and what a denarius was, back in normal times, you'd be 10 times, an ounce of silver would be 10 times higher.
Correct. I hate to give the paper price because, again, it locks you into that currency mentality, but that's the idea. The value would be 10 times more than you can buy it for today. That's correct.
Okay, so if you were going to equal it to back in Roman times before all the derivatives and debt bombs and things like that, it'd be about
and the paper supply.
Correct. Wow. That's an amazing fact. Do you think if this is a deal now that should everybody have? I mean, you're the silver guru, writing the Silver Manifesto. Of course, you're going to say everybody should have silver. Why? Tell me, I don't have an ounce of silver. So let's say I'm the person who doesn't have an ounce of silver, and I'm one of Greg's family members that never listens to his videos and thinks I'm crazy. Why should you tell them, please, why they should have some silver?
Why? Well, as I read at the beginning of the show, in the event of a currency collapse, you need to trade or barter or whatever. And in that case, silver has been the money more places, more times, and used more often than gold by far throughout all of history. It's the people's money. So that's the reason why. It's because something that's trusted. If you took a silver dime from 1964 or 63 or prior to 1964, you could take that out of your pocket. You could show it to a 5-year-old kid. And within about 3 minutes, you could convince them rather easily that that is a 90% silver coin. You wouldn't have any problem. It's called junk silver. I don't like the terminology. It's really constitutional silver, but that's what it is. So it's very easy to explain what silver is and why it's valuable. And I don't think that we've got too far to go into the near future where people will start to use it more and more. You've already seen it used for, let's go to Craigslist. Look, there's people that accept silver for rent. There are people that accept silver to sell their bicycle. And people are free to contract in this country still, even with all the repression, all the financial repression and otherwise. People still do things they want to do. And if both parties benefit, I'd rather spend this silver coinage and get that bicycle because I value that bike more than this amount of silver, and the other party values that silver more than the bicycle, then commerce continues.
And you say that silver is the money of last resort? Explain that one more time.
Well, first and last resort, I mean, that's how the country was founded, for crying out loud. I mean, the United States was founded on a silver standard, not a gold standard. So, it's the alpha and omega, Greg. We're basically going full circle. We've gone from an honest system based on standard weights and measures that everyone believed in and trusted to a system that no one trusts, including the elite. The elite know what's happening, back to something that everyone can trust. So we've gone again full circle. It's only a matter of time before that wake-up call that Greg Hunter has talked about, where either you have it or you don't. Are you going to have to use it or not? I cannot say. What I can say is that there will be places that are using it right now, and that will accelerate, that will become more in demand, and you'll see more transactions conducted in the precious metals over time. In fact, I just came back from the PDAC in Toronto. There's a new gold-backed currency called BitGold, and BitGold is a gold-backed situation. I'll probably be reporting on that, and more going to report in the near future.
David Morgan, brand new book, just out this past week, just about a week ago. The Silver Manifesto. There's going to be a link to buy it. I don't get any money out of this. I want people to know anytime I do put a link up like this, a Silver Manifesto or somebody's newsletter, I do not make money. I just do this as a courtesy to you. Great book. I thumbed through it and read some chapters. I love the debt bomb. The Silver Manifesto by David Morgan. David Morgan, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com, my friend.
My pleasure, and just let me throw out, it's David Morgan and Chris Marchese. Chris did a great deal of writing in that book, so it is a co-authored book. I want to get Chris's name on your show briefly because I shouldn't leave him out. And David Smith also, who has worked with me for years, had a great deal of influence as well, so thank you for giving me a couple minutes just to, it's not all about me, Greg. It's a team effort here.
Okay, David Morgan, you got their names in there. That's great. David Morgan, silver-investor.com. You've seen the book, The Silver Manifesto. David Morgan, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Pleasure's all mine, Greg. Thanks for your time.